Have you ever wondered how your favorite game knows you've just leveled up? Or how your banking app decides if a transaction looks suspicious? Well, it's not magic, it's code making decisions. Today, we're going to give your code a brain by diving into one of the most powerful concepts in all of programming. I mean, really think about it. How does a program know if you've won or lost a game? How does a login screen know if you typed the right password? Well, it's all thanks to a core programming idea that lets our code literally choose its own adventure. And that big idea is called selection. You see, selection is what turns a program from just a boring, straight line of instructions into something that feels alive, something that's interactive, flexible, and yeah, even a little bit intelligent. It's the absolute foundation for writing code that can react to the world. So what is it exactly? Well, at its heart, selection is all about choosing between different paths, and that choice is always based on a condition, which is really just a simple question that has a simple answer, true or false. Now, for any of you studying for your OCR exams, listen up, because this is huge. Selection is one of the 3 core programming constructs you absolutely have to know. This right here shows you the massive difference it makes. On the left, you've got a program without selection. It's rigid. It's a one-trick pony that does the exact same thing every single time. But on the right, with selection, the program comes to life. It can actually respond to what you do, handle different scenarios, and become way, way more powerful. Okay, so theory is great, but how do we actually put this into our code? Well, let's start with the most basic tool in our decision-making toolkit, the simple I statement. This is where your program takes its very first step into thinking for itself. And here's what it looks like. Think of this as a one-way street. The program checks a condition, in this case, is the score greater than 50? And if, and only if, that statement is true, it runs the code inside. Here, it prints pass. If it's not true, it just keeps on going. So the logic is really straightforward. The program asks the question. If the answer's yes, it does the thing. If the answer's no, well, it does nothing. It just skips right over that bit of code. That's the key thing to remember. If the condition is false, that code inside the if block is completely ignored. But hold on. What if we want the program to do something else when the condition is false? What if we need an alternative path? Well, for that, we can give our simple IF statement a little upgrade. And that upgrade is the else statement. This creates a really clear fork in the road for our program. It has 2 distinct choices. It checks if the score is 50 or more. If that's true, it prints pass. But if it's not true, it follows the else path and prints fail. The logic here is simple, but it's so powerful. You've got 2 paths, but the program can only ever take one of them. Based on that single true or false answer, exactly one of these code blocks is guaranteed to run. It's a definite choice, one way or the other, every single time. Okay, so we're leveling up. We can handle a simple choice, and we can handle a 2-way choice. But real life is messy, right? What about more complex situations where there are tons of possible outcomes? For that, we've got a couple of fantastic tools, ELSEIF and Switch. Let's kick things off with IF ELSEIF ELSE. This is your absolute go-to when you need to check a whole series of related conditions, one after the other. It's kind of like a waterfall of questions. This grading example is perfect. The code first asks, is the score 80 or above? If it is, boom, it prints grade A and the whole thing is done. It doesn't even look at the other conditions. But if it's not, it moves on to the next question. Okay then, is the score 50 or above? If that's true, it prints pass. And if all else fails, it just gives up and runs the final else block. Now, here's the most important thing to get right. The order you write these in matters a lot. The computer checks them one by one, from the top down. And the very instant it finds the first one that's true, it runs that code, and then completely ignores the rest of the chain. Only one block will ever run. So what if you're not checking for a range, like greater than 50? What if you need to check if a variable is equal to one of many specific fixed values? I mean, you could use a really long, ugly chain of else ifs, but there's a much cleaner way to do it, the switch statement. Just look how neat and tidy this is. The program takes the variable, in this case day, and just compares it to each case. It asks, does it match Monday? If so, it runs that code. Does it match Friday? Okay, do that one. And if it doesn't match any of the specific cases we've listed, the default option acts like a safety net, just like our final else from before. All right, let's take a breath. We've got if else,
the whole if-ELSEIF chain, and switch. That's our toolkit. But knowing what the tools do is only half the battle, right? The real skill of a great programmer is knowing which tool to pull out for the right job.
Think of this table as your cheat sheet. Use a simple if when an action is totally optional. Grab if, else for a clear two-way choice. If, else is your champion for checking ordered ranges, like our grading example. And switch, man, that thing shines when you're checking one variable against a list of specific values. It just makes your code so much easier to read. Now, before we wrap up, I want to save you some future headaches. Let's talk about the common mistakes everybody makes. Forgetting your end if or end switch, yep, we've all been there. Using a single equal sign when you meant to use two for comparison, that's a classic. Also, be super careful that your conditions don't accidentally overlap, and always double-check those boundary values. Is it greater than or equal to? It makes a huge difference. All right, let's lock all this in. We're going to do a quick-fire recap of the absolute most important points you need to remember from this whole explainer. Okay, here we go. 1. Selection is always based on a true or false condition. 2. No matter how complex it looks, only one path of code will ever run. 3. With if and else if, the order is critical because conditions are checked from the top down. And 4. Whenever you can, use a switch statement. It just makes your code cleaner and easier for you and others to understand. So there you have it. You now have the fundamental tools to make your code think, to make it react, and to make it choose. You can now build things that aren't just simple lists of instructions, but are actually dynamic, responsive systems. So the next time you use an app, try to spot those moments of decision, because now you know exactly how they work. You have the power to build them yourself. So, what will you create?